Good evening, my name is Bernard, and I'm going to spend a little time tonight explaining how to not only disassemble an Axim X50 model, but take out the screen and replace the screen. I've read on a lot of boards where people wanted to take apart their Axim and replace a screen that was cracked or try and troubleshoot something, but they really felt intimidated by the Axim, and I think that after disassembling dozens of units, I felt like I needed to help people understand not only how easy it is to do, but how fast it is to disassemble the unit and troubleshoot a problem you're having with the Axim. The first thing I want to do is let you know the tools you'll need. You'll need a Torx 5 screwdriver, and what I'm using is a generic screwdriver with a Torx 5 bit. Comes in very handy. The other tool that we're going to use tonight is a regular Phillips head screwdriver on the smaller side. I've also got a bottle of window cleaner and a cotton cloth I'm going to use for cleaning the screen assembly. This is an Axim X50V model. It is in working order. The screen has some blemishes on it, but it still works fine. The screen aligns properly and responds to clicks the way it should. The first thing we need to do, obviously, is turn off the Axim. The next thing we're going to do is remove the battery. In this unit I have a 2200 milliamp battery. We'll put the battery aside for now. If you'll notice on the Axim, there are 4 rubber feet or stoppers. There are screws located underneath those rubber stoppers. So what we're going to do is take them off, and I usually just use a fingernail to actually pick out the rubber stopper, and then place it in a bowl or a plate or a sheet of paper so that we can get them later. The feet on the top are more like flat rubber strips, and the rubber stoppers on the bottom are like little hole fillers, and so those need to be picked out with a round screwdriver. Even the stylus works. Okay, once we do that, there's 4 screws exposed. One of the screws is likely to have a white strip of paper over it, and what that is a security feature from the manufacturer that lets them know if they ever receive a unit if it had been taken apart. This one already has been taken apart, and so you see the indenture in the white sheet on top of the screw. What I'm going to do is go ahead and remove these screws with the Torx screwdriver. It's about 8 turns. Sometimes you'll see residue left from taking off the rubber feet, and it's a good idea to go ahead and remove that residue. And the reason is you want a clean, tight fit when we return to put the feet on at the end. Okay, so now the 4 screws are out. We won't need Torx for a few more minutes. The next thing I want to talk about is how to actually separate the case. What I normally do is start across the top. If you'll notice, I've removed the stoppers for the Smart Digital and for the compact flash. And what I'm going to do is use my thumb to simply run across the top and create a crack. And I'm holding the unit quite firmly with my left hand as I run my thumb across. You can almost see the crack now that has been produced. The next thing you want to do, I'm going to refer to this as corner 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 being upper left, 2 upper right, 3 lower left, 4 lower right. What you want to do is take the unit and run your thumb up and down the left side or a fingernail. I wouldn't use a metal device because you really don't want to scratch the case. if you'll notice, I've already got a good opening here with the unit, and I didn't apply that much pressure. Okay, in some cases, you won't get this response. You'll have to go around the entire unit with a fingernail, I suppose, to get the unit off. But you want one side to come off freely, and so what we have right now is the left side that is off. Once the left side is off, or the right side for that matter, all you have to do is lift out the case. So now what you have is the top part intact, fully removed from the Axim, and it's just one piece. There's no screws that come out of it. It's very friendly, and you'll notice there are three on each side, 3 points where the unit attaches to the base. Okay, that's what holds it together, in addition to the 4 screws. Okay, so we'll put the top aside for now. Now what you see is the Axim with exposed command buttons. The screen is 100% exposed, as well as the microphone and the power button assembly. Now at this point, what I'd like to note is that if you only want to clean the screen thoroughly, this is a perfect time to do it. You don't have to take the unit apart any further. There's a lot of gunk that gets developed around the side here that is underneath the top case. All you need to do is take a cotton cloth and some Windex and not even gently, just wipe down the entire screen, go over it again with the dry side of the cloth, and if you were having alignment problems, you probably won't have them anymore. Okay? We're going to take it a step further and actually disassemble the rest of the unit. What we need to do is turn the unit over and keep in mind that the sticker you see with the serial number, service tag, and express service code is actually the motherboard. Okay? So what we're going to do is just press in on the label, and you'll actually feel the back case come right off. Okay? The back case doesn't have any moving parts other than the lock and unlock button. Okay? There's no more screws that can come out. Again, it's a very docile part of the Axim. Not many moving parts on it. Okay? The battery latch system you see down here, it stays fully intact. It has a couple of screws. I've never removed them and probably never will. Okay? A lot of dirt can collect in the crevices. It's a good idea to probably wash this out with some isopropyl alcohol if it is dirty. If not dirty, I wouldn't mess with it. But again, it's a very it's very easy to handle. Okay, so we'll put that aside for now. What we have now is the screen unit and the motherboard. Okay. The next piece we need to focus on is the back plastic molding that gives shape to the compact flash and also provides a point for the reset button on the back. Okay. At this point, we're going to remove the plastic form with 4 Phillips head screws. Okay. This is very easy. Sometimes the screws don't come out on their own because they're set in. What you'll need to do is consider lifting a little bit the corner of the plastic mold, and that will help remove the screws. Right now I've got 2 undone. One didn't want to come out, one did. These screws will fly across the floor, so be careful. One thing I want to point out here is the microphone assembly. It wraps around a piece of the plastic in that mold. So pay attention to that when you remove the plastic mold. If you lift from the top where the compact flash is, you can kind of get a feel for how it's going to come off. And all you have to do is lift it off. Okay? And if there's a couple of screws still in there, like I had, then go ahead and just tap it over, and the screws come out just fine. Okay, so what you have are basically 3 plastic pieces, and now we're down to the motherboard. And usually, as you'll see on the sheet of paper I've got, there's a nice bit of dust and hair and dirt that is collected. That really all came out of the Axim. At this point, if you had a bent pin in your compact flash, this is the perfect time to fix it because all you need is a pair of needle nose pliers. And you can very easily fix that. Now, sometimes pins actually get pushed down into the assembly, and that is, in my experience, very difficult to fix. It's almost easier just not to worry about it. But if you do have a bent pin, even a laying down pin, you can stand it back up with a pair of needle nose pliers and be back in business. What you see now on this unit is the backup reserve battery, and it's connected right here with a small connector. If you wanted to replace that, what you would do is use some needle nose pliers and simply pull gently that battery unit out. This is simply attached with adhesive, and it will stick to the white spot that it's been set to fairly easily. If you need to unplug the microphone for some reason, the assembly is right there. It's similar to the backup battery. For the case, for the screen assembly, there are 1, 2, 3, and then there's another cable assembly in the back. This one here is a ribbon cable. All you need to do is take a fingernail and flip that back, okay? And then what I like to do is take a small screwdriver and simply pull gently on that cable, okay? Fingers are much larger than the tip of a screwdriver. You can get the tip of a screwdriver in here and pull that cable assembly out very easily and reliably, okay? The other piece we're going to pull out, and I just take the tip of a screwdriver and loosen, if you will, or adjust these little tabs that are securing this other cable into the plug, okay? So see how I've pulled those out a little bit? Same thing, you can take your screwdriver tip and just pull out gently, and now you've exposed 2 of the 4 cables, okay? The next cable I want to focus on is the cable for the command buttons, the shortcut buttons. That's a ribbon cable that is connected to the motherboard on the front, and you just need to gently lift, okay, lift that out a little bit. The next cable is in between the motherboard and the screen assembly, and it kind of limits what you can do with the screen until it's disconnected. All you have to do is take the tip of a screwdriver that's long enough and kind of put it in between the ribbon cable and the motherboard and simply pull a little bit, okay? Now you have a completely detached unit, okay? The screen assembly is completely separated from the motherboard, okay? Now once you get to this level, you're almost there. If you need to replace the actual screen and reuse the command button and screen housing, all you have to do at this point is remove the metal housing from the screen, okay? And that's pretty easy to do. Now, we're basically ready to put it back together, okay? One thing to keep in mind is that the large ribbon cable here is inserted through this hole. That's right there, okay? And the small ribbon cable at the bottom of the screen actually gets folded over the metal assembly, okay? And it should fit into the metal housing flat. Okay, now it's back in place. And if you'll notice, the long ribbon cable is actually through a cutout in the metal piece, and the smaller ribbon is simply dangling over the edge. Okay, that's the way it's supposed to be. Now, it's a little tricky to get the last rip cable I showed you into that plug right there, but I think we can do it pretty easily. All you have to do is kind of line up the assembly to the motherboard, okay? And what I like to do is to use the command button cable with the command button plug as a reference, okay? That's sort of an easy way to think about it. We're not going to go in the reverse order to reconnect the cables. I actually like to start with the two cables on the back, okay? And I'll explain why in a second. I just take my hand and make sure that the little door for that ribbon cable is opened up, if you will, and then simply insert that cable into the receiving end gently. It should be parallel. Sometimes, just like right now, I'm having trouble where it wants to go in crooked, and that won't suffice. Okay. So once you play with it a few times, then it's flat, and all you have to do is close the lid. Okay. For the other ribbon cable, the smaller one, all you have to do is simply take your thumb and finger and simply insert it into the receiving end, okay, as it was, and then take a screwdriver. It's easier than using a finger, and simply close those little security holders that keep that cable in place. Okay. Now for the command button cable, what I like to do is take a flathead screwdriver. I don't have one in this case. I'll make it work though. And I just like to sort of push in to that receptacle with a screwdriver, okay? So that since the cable folds over, you really can't push down on that. You actually have to get in between so that you're pushing down on the plug itself. And I hope that the camera angle captures that, because you just need to put a little pressure right there, okay? So now we're almost done with the screen assembly, but we still have the cable that is located in between here. Now you're probably saying, how are we going to mash down this cable that's in between when we can hardly open it? Obviously, it's easier to disconnect the cable, as we saw a moment ago, than it is to reconnect it. What I like to do is have the unit firmly closed, and then kind of tap down on the back of the unit so that the screen is lifting up and leaving the metal housing exposed. Okay, so now I've got a clear view of that cable, and I'm just going to take my thumb and literally just tap it in with my thumb. It's lined up perfectly since everything else fit, and there's nowhere else for that plug to go. Okay, and there's no latch to close. There's nothing else to do. That cable's in place. Okay. Now what we have is a complete screen assembly reconnected to the motherboard. Okay. And if this had been a screen replacement, I would have just put a new screen on and discarded the cracked screen. Okay. I think I'm going to take a minute at this time and clean the screen because it is kind of dirty. In many cases, I've seen Axims come back from a user saying they could not align the screen, and all it took was simply disassembling the Axim to the stage where the top case was removed, and I was able to clean the garbage that was around the sides. Sometimes it doesn't work, but sometimes it does. Also, I've seen cases where screen alignment problems have been fixed by disconnecting everything, disconnecting the backup battery like I showed you a minute ago, and then plugging everything back in, reconnecting everything, reassembling the unit, and turning it back on. So it's amazing what a little mechanical work can do. Now I think we're ready to actually reassemble the unit. What I'm going to do is start with, and it's easy to forget, you need to start with the black plastic form that goes on the back. and helps shape the compact flash slot. Now remember that this little groove here in the plastic is where the microphone hooks around and gets formed into the top. So we don't really have to worry about that yet, but what I'm going to do is line it up, and the easiest way to remember it is that the top portion basically covers the compact flash housing. Okay? So it only goes in one way. You just want to feel your way through it, and then once you get that lined up, take each screw and one by one reconnect them with the Phillips head screwdriver. And this screwdriver is magnetic, so it's causing a little bit of difficulty. And these screws will strip easily, so it's important to pay attention that you're not applying too much pressure, or that you're using a screwdriver that is too big or too small. Keep in mind that if you forgot to put this plastic case cover back, it would be more difficult to utilize the soft reset button, because your stylus would have farther to travel to arrive at the button on the motherboard. That's really the main thing that I believe this black cover does, because I've forgotten several times to put it back on, and everything seems to work fine, except that when you go to do a soft reset, you have to use a safety pin or long paper clip, because you simply can't reach the actual button on the motherboard in the absence of the extender that's provided. Okay, so now what we've got is the black cover securely on with 4 screws. Now we're just going to take the microphone assembly and simply wrap it around that little groove. I'm just using my fingernail. I might use the tip of a screwdriver to do that. Okay. And then it just kind of rests at the top. Then we're going to next attach the bottom case. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, but I'm going to mention it now, is the lock button. Okay, this right here is the raw lock button, and you can kind of see it's in the down position, and now it's in the up position. I would move it with a screwdriver, not your finger. Okay, and you want to make sure that the position of the actual lock button on the system board corresponds to the lock button on the case. In this case, they're both black, which is unlocked. And I'm going to actually put my thumb over the lock button on the bottom case, because it moves freely, unlike the lock button on the system board. Okay? Something else to keep in mind is you want the battery belt, as I call it, to be pushed through, because if it's actually up in the motherboard cavity, you're going to have to rip it out with a pair of pliers at the end, and so it's a lot easier just to push it through so it's dangling like that. I've learned my lesson on that a few times. Okay. What I do is start joining the top to the top, and keeping in mind that the microphone kind of needs to be exposed. Okay, so I'm paying attention to that, and simply line it up to the case, and then it should fit right in. And what you want to do is look at the bottom and make sure it's a nice clean fit, and then look to make sure that it's parallel all the way across, and it's not on one side leaning up anymore. You also want to take one more peek at the ribbon cable here where the command buttons are, and make sure that that's firmly connected, because sometimes when you reseat the system into the bottom case, that connector can become loose. Okay, so now we have a nice clean fit, and you see that the top is nicely aligned as well. Okay, and I really wasn't very gentle with the unit. It's very resilient, quite strong, and you don't have to worry about breaking it. Okay, the microphone is exposed, and what I'm going to do is take the top case, and if you'll notice in the top case, if you're looking at the bottom, it's on the right side. There's a hole where that little piece sits. Okay. So what I'm going to do is simply take the microphone and fit it into that hole, and that's actually the first piece that is going to be seated into the case. Once it's there, it moves kind of freely. I want to make a good join at the top, okay, and then simply use my fingers to reseat the rest of the unit. And what you'll notice is that you hear 4 to 5 crack noises, and that means that the unit is reseated and it's really a good fit. Okay. One thing I failed to mention at the start, it's a lot easier to do everything if the stylus is removed because it's actually exposed inside, and so when you're taking the case apart, you might accidentally catch the stylus and jolt something, so it's easier if the stylus is gone. Okay. Now all we're going to do is put the 4 Torx screws back, one by one. It doesn't matter which one you start with. Okay. I'm simply putting them back in until they're snug, not too tight, but I want the Axim to be securely assembled. And this is again a Torx 5, known as T5. Easy to come across. There's no substitute for it. Okay. Now the Axim is put back together. The battery belt is exposed. Everything looks the way it should, except for the finger and smudge marks that I applied while putting the unit back together. The screen is thoroughly and noticeably cleaner than it was before I disassembled the unit. Okay. Now that's all left to put on are the rubber feet. The rubber feet, sometimes when they're removed, leave a residue in these little molds. More in the top than the bottom. It's a really good idea to thoroughly clean this area on both sides so that when you reattach the foot, okay, it gets a clean adhesive area and is not simply sticking to dirt or grime. I'm not going to put any glue on these, but depending on the results you have, you may choose to use some stick adhesive to make a cleaner match between the case and the feet. Okay. I'm simply going to put the feet back on in their current without any more adhesive. Okay, they just fit into the mold. The bottom feet sometimes are easier placed with a screwdriver. I'm going to put the foot back in as much as I can, and then I'm going to take the screwdriver and actually manipulate the foot with the screwdriver. It makes it a little easier because fingers can be big. Okay, now we have a good fit there. And we'll take the other unit, the other foot, and do the same thing. The feet on the bottom can easily be reversed. The good thing is you really can't mess up because all you have to do is take them out and put them back on. Okay. So at this point, we'll put the battery back in and the case back on. Latch it. And we're going to turn the unit back on. And I'm going to do a soft reset. Okay, and what we have is a screen that works perfectly. I hope this has been an enjoyable video. I hope you've learned more about your Axim than you knew before you watched the video, specifically dealing with the hardware and how to disassemble the unit. That's all. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.